pretty amazing to see how much this backyard has changed since my wife and I started growing our own food here 4 years ago. And gardening was just a hobby for us at first, until I started this channel, and then things started to change pretty dramatically. So now we are heading into new territory, literally, with this new permaculture food forest. And I know people love to see a transformation as it's taking place, and I do too. So as we continue developing this new garden, I'll be showing as much as I can of that process. So if you'd like to follow along, please subscribe to the channel, and you can watch this whole backyard gradually turn into, fingers crossed, a perennial food forest. If you're thinking about starting, or you've already started your own food forest, I hope that my videos can be helpful. I will say up front that I'm not a botanist, horticulturist, or any other professional plant-based occupation that required lots of time and money to achieve. I'm also somewhat new to permaculture in general. I started doing this as a curious interest and with some influence from my wife, whose mother always has a garden, but now it's become a big part of my life too. And since I'm mostly trying to educate myself, I often get things wrong, and I'm willing to show when I do so that my viewers can hopefully learn from that as well. As you follow our food forest progress, you'll see me trying my best to figure this out as I go along. But if that helps you feel less intimidated and you decide to try it for yourself, then I consider my mission a success. So I'd like to focus on just one or two topics in each food forest video, and over the summer, I'll cover different aspects of the early development phase. For this video, I want to talk about soil preparation and transplanting the first new inhabitants to the food forest. We prepared the soil in this area by laying down partially decomposed organic matter and fresh wood chips on top of the existing vegetation. This will feed the organisms living in the soil and thereby improve the soil's texture and fertility. In hindsight, I wish we had also covered the area with cardboard sheet mulch first to suppress weed growth. We skipped that step, and you can see how many stubborn wild violets are growing through the mulch. They are edible and good for salads, but we'll have to keep pulling them up because we don't want them taking away resources from what we really want to grow. And speaking of which, let's take a closer look at what actually is growing here, because you probably can't see very much from that far away. And currently some of these things may look a bit dirty and damaged because we had some heavy rain last week. So we have two varieties of peaches that are doing very well already. They seem to have survived in the wet soil so far. For herbs, we have sage and oregano. We plan to add rosemary, catnip, and maybe a few others. For nitrogen fixation, we have wild lupin growing inside that will be transplanted out here very soon. I'm also very happy to have some comfrey now. I planted this in a few locations so we always have some handy for mulching. I transplanted some Egyptian walking onions from the main garden. And for pollinators, we have echinacea, borage, butterfly weed, bee balm, nasturtiums, and joining them soon will be black-eyed Susans and prairie blazing star. So the biggest problem I've run into so far with this is that we have such a thick layer of organic material sitting on top of the soil. And when it comes time to plant something, we have to push that aside, and that leaves a deep bowl where the plants will sit. And since we have such a heavy clay soil, when it rains a lot, like it did recently, the water doesn't drain through the soil very quickly. And a lot of these plants wound up sitting in water for almost 3 days. And for some of the smaller ones, I think the lack of oxygen in the soil with all that water probably damaged some of their root systems. And the smaller ones look like they've had some trouble, but I think virtually everything survived and they're all starting to recover. Thankfully, we haven't had that much rain the last few days, and temperatures are starting to warm up considerably. So all of this organic matter does help to soak up a lot of the rainwater, but with a heavy clay soil like this, it means that the water still takes a long time to drain through further down into the soil. The good news is that this will get better as long as we keep adding organic matter and wood chips on top, because as that breaks down, it will improve the soil's texture and aeration. And it will also eventually completely decompose into the soil itself and become part of the growing medium. And it should help to settle all of this down a bit further, closer to the existing soil surface, so the plants aren't sitting so low in the ground. So eventually, once this is broken down, we will be planting directly into this, and we can continue adding more wood chips around everything for mulch. For the time being, I've been adding some half-finished compost here and there to keep things moving along. As long as everything continues to grow, it's going to look a lot different around here in just a few weeks. So in future videos, I'll also be talking about other factors like sunlight, arrangement, location, microclimates, our choices for what we have growing here already, and other things we'd like to incorporate, and so on. And at some point, we'll most likely have to do something with these maple trees, and that will be a pretty big deal. But once again, we're just getting started on this new food forest, and I hope you'll subscribe and come back to see future progress. So thank you very much for watching, and stay safe out there wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.